Yeah, so thank you everybody for coming tonight on a Thursday to discuss our presentation. I'm just going to share my screen now, hopefully. So hopefully everybody can see that. Yeah, brilliant. So we're here tonight to discuss maximising your wealth from property in 2024. So what does that involve? So the contents of this presentation is myself discussing Northeast house prices and why I think they're going to rocket over the next 18 months. How to structure yourself for success. So a guide to buy-to-let finance. We've got Gary from the mortgage brokerage who's going to help you out with your buy-to-let finance. And we've also got 𝗪𝗓𝗍𝗪, my senior lettings manager, who's going to discuss compliance and regulations. Incredibly important these days, compliance and regulations, to make sure you don't fall into some of the pitfalls and traps out there within the rental market. So who are we? So I'm one of the directors and owners of NGU Homes. We've been around for 17 years. I own between 100 and around 150 properties. I've seen all the ups and downs in terms of the last 15 years. I've seen the credit crunch in 2007, this low interest rate period we saw from 2007 till recently, and then the movement in interest rates recently. So I've made money consistently in that period, and really my core mission, or the core mission of our company, is to maximize wealth for landlords while being fair to our tenants. Also, who we've got here is Gary from the mortgage brokerage business. He's actually, I was speaking to him last week. He's been in business for 10 years last week. So it's his anniversary, his 10-year anniversary. He's just celebrated. Again, similar to ourselves, he likes to maximize wealth for landlords, whether they're a beginner or a seasoned investor. So the host, myself, Gary, and 𝗪𝗓𝗍𝗪. Just to explain why we're here, it's my job tonight to give you as much value as I possibly can. So I want to give you all the value I've got as a landlord from all that experience I've had over the last 15 years. And I work 24/7 working within the lettings industry and as a landlord. So I want to give you as much value as I possibly can and what I understand. And why am I giving you that value? Well, it's really being perfectly honest. If I give you as much value as I possibly can, and if you find what I say interesting or valuable, you can come to myself as a landlord and use my letting agency. So I'd like you to use us. But if you don't, I'm perfectly happy for you to say as a self-managed landlord or stay with your letting agent. But hopefully by providing that value to you, you might come over to ourselves. Finally, actually, is a bit of a housekeeping piece. Molly in the background, who was helping me out earlier, she's going to take any questions we've got in the background. So if you put any questions in the comments section of Facebook, she'll basically take them all down, and myself, Gary, and 𝗪𝗓𝗍𝗪 will answer them at the end, which will be brilliant. If this is an interactive session, we'd love that, and we'd love to answer any questions you've got. So anyway, moving into my presentation, why I think house prices are going to rocket. So let's start at the beginning. 2023, I don't know what you found as a landlord, but it was an absolute nightmare. Interest rates moved from in December 2021 of 0.25%. They went up to 3.75% in 2022. 2023, we went up to 5.25%. It's been an absolute nightmare for landlords in terms of the amount of money we've had to pay in mortgages. And really, it's not the movement, it's the rate of change in the movement. So as you can see, interest rates were really stable for about 10 to 12 years. And then there was this quick move up to 5.25%, which has caused lots of problems within the landlord market. So what's caused that? Really, it's inflation. Inflation's hit 11% last year. And really what caused that was COVID, I think. There was a lot of money put in the economy during COVID. We obviously had Ukraine as well, which put up energy prices. And we saw inflation really take off over the last 18 months. What's been happening recently is we've managed to beat that inflation down. It's actually 3.2% now. So we've managed to move that inflation down. So we've looked at interest rates and inflation, but really what's happened to house prices as well over the last year? Well, there was lots of predictions that over the last year, between January 2023 and January 2024, there was going to be a 20% house price fall. And actually, house prices haven't moved at all. They've pretty much stayed at the same value over that 1 year period. But there's another thing which has happened really, which we need to think about what's happened over the last last 18 months. There's been a big move in rents. Especially as a letting agent, we've seen this, that rents have really increased quite dramatically over the last 18 months. In 2007, and this is when I began my buy-to-let journey or lettings journey, rents were pretty much an average 475. By 2019, which was 12 years later, my average rents were still 475. And really, there wasn't a big movement in rents in the Northeast over the last 10 to 12 years. And I could put this down to a few factors. There was a decrease in benefits during the austerity period, where they moved benefits down to the 30th percentile. The population in the Northeast is pretty static, I'd say, as well over the last 10 to 12 years. And there's been lots of landlord stock available as well. But since 2019, what we've seen in rents actually is them increase from that 475 to about 650 is our average rent these days. So we've seen a 40% increase in a very short period of time. But what does that mean? You know, we've had like interest rates move quickly, we've had high inflation, we've had rents even higher, 40% movement in rents. But what's that going to mean to house prices, really? Well, really the best way to look at this is to give you an example. And this is a property we recently sold to an investor and a property we've managed for a while. So Lidbrook Road, Middlesbrough, is a really nice property, 3-bed semi, double bay window, lovely property. We rented this property for a while, up to about 2021 for 495. Actually sold it to an investor for 81k last year. I think it was about August last year. And the expected rent had moved from that 495 to about 725. So that's a cracking little deal, 11% yield, makes you about £460 a month after interest. So if you've got a buy-to-let mortgage and say, for instance, you've got a 5.25% interest rate on that mortgage, you'd make 460 on that property, 11% yield. So cracking deal. And to be honest, if I was a landlord or I was trying to get involved in buy-to-let, I'd definitely buy that deal. Good deal. But what we've got to factor into this is interest rates have, like I highlighted, went to 5.25%. And now people aren't talking about interest rates increasing. They're actually saying they've peaked, you know. So we've got a meeting in May and we've got another meeting in June. And really they're talking about interest rates, the interest rate cutting cycle starting in June this year. And so what would that mean if interest rates are cut? So if we have a look at what the predictions are, people are predicting that interest rates are currently 5.25%. They're expecting them to be cut by about 4% in the next 18 months. They're expecting by about mid-2025 for about 1.25% of base rates cuts. And to be honest, I think over the next 2 to 3 years, we're at 5.25% now. Interest rates will probably dip down to about 3.5% is their natural rate to come down to once all this inflation has worked its way through. So what we've got to try to do is factor in where house prices are going to be once this cost of interest has decreased. So if in 18 months' time we can get a buy-to-let mortgage of 4%, obviously we're going to be paying more interest, but we'd still want to do that deal, I expect, that property where we want to earn £460 a month from it. So how much would that property be worth if we still wanted to earn £460, but we're now only paying 4% on our interest rates? Well, actually, that house, if you bought that house for 105 grand rather than the 81, you'd still be earning £463 at 4% interest. So that's a 30% increase in price. So you can see that these rents have moved, but house prices haven't moved as well yet because of that rental move. And so what I'm thinking is, you know what, these houses, once we start getting into that interest rate cutting cycle, are going to be too cheap. And they are too cheap. You know, why wouldn't you buy a 3-bed semi double bay windowed house for 81k? You get £725 rent, plus the fact interest rates are now at 3.5%. It's a cracking deal. You know, you'd be stupid not to take that deal. So does history repeat itself? So really, that's the question I keep asking myself. And, you know, we all ask ourselves when it comes to you know, this inflation cycle we're in. And all I can go back to, and it's really talking anecdotally about my dad, actually. And I don't know if people are at an age where they can remember the 1970s. I can't, but my dad could. And he used to always mention the 1970s as this golden age where jobs were plentiful, there was high inflation, and economically it was a good period in some ways for the UK economy. So what happened in the 1970s is we had this big spike in inflation, but actually house prices quadrupled over that period. So from 1970 to the end of the 70s, they went from 4,000 to 22,000. So we saw this big movement in house prices as this inflation as inflation spread through the market. And you can see on this graph, which shows you the inflation in the 1970s. And if you try to put 11% on that graph, you'll see we're starting to get into the range of where inflation was in the 1970s. So the big question I really have is what's going to happen once this inflation flows through into asset prices in the Northeast? Once we start seeing these interest rate cuts, the economy picking up, how is that going to flow through into asset prices? And I'd probably say how that's going to flow through is an increase in property prices. And I'm hoping to see over the next 2 years a 30–40% increase. And realistically, now's the time to buy, if you believe that, rather than in 18 months' time, before those interest rates are cut and the housing market heats up. Now's the right time to buy. So that's my presentation on why I think house prices are going to increase. I'm now going to pass you over to Gary. I've got some notes to help me do this. So I'm going to stop my share, so I can pass myself over to Gary. I'll put myself on mute.
So the reason it's not working. Hi everybody, my name's Gary and I'm the founder and managing director of the 盛 Brokerage, and I'm also an experienced landlord. So what I do is I basically specialise in the buy-to-let market, so that's whether it's limited company or personal. And just got the screen. Yeah, I specialise in buy-to-let, and that's I work with clients who either are looking for their first buy-to-let investment, or landlords where I've took them from one buy-to-let up to 25, 30, and I also work with landlords who have got in the hundreds, multi-million pound on a national basis, and they come to me to basically see if they can refinance and what they can and can't do. So I'm just going to do a brief overview, recap on 2023, why the market was difficult. In reality was interest rates, because they rose so high in such a short time, it was a shock to the system to a lot of clients, and there was a lot of volatility within the markets. Lenders were pulling out of deals regular, sometimes only giving us 2–3 hours notice. They would maybe send us an email at 3 o'clock in the afternoon saying rates were getting pulled at 5 o'clock, and it was just a little bit of turmoil. And really, for the buy-to-let portfolio landlords and also landlords themselves, they got penalised probably the most, because lenders become over cautious and start stress testing and basically working with guidelines where it was making landlords who had properties more difficult to refinance. So a lot of clients, a lot of landlords were stuck within their portfolios, couldn't do anything, and sitting on base rates, some 8, 9, 10%, which was very difficult. Now, 2024, we've seen a shift within the market, and I think it's all come out of the blue, and it started within the residential Halifax, coming to the market in January and just basically reduced rates by 0.93% on the 3rd of January. And what we're seeing is major high street lenders reducing their rates just to keep up with the competition, because obviously they wanted to get business in, they needed to build their pipeline. And what we tend to see is once the residential market drops, the buy-to-let, the investment market follows suit, a few months behind obviously. But what we're seeing now is more positivity in the market, a realisation with clients. I think clients were coming off deals last year, 0.99%, 1.5%, talking to them, and they were going up to 5–6%, sometimes higher, and it was a shock to the system. people were thinking, how am I going to afford this new mortgage? Clients were burying their heads in the sand, because they knew the payments were going to go up, and some people, it was put themselves in difficult positions. And that's when you need to speak to the broker, just to reassure them, see what we can do. But also for landlords, the experienced landlords and the savvy ones, this is the time, and it's an opportunity to purchase and increase your portfolio, because you don't make money on the actual interest you're paying. It's actually the deals that you first buy and purchase. So anybody with some equity in the properties or got some savings, look into listen to what we have to say today. We'll offer a free no obligation consultation, and let us work with you to basically add wealth and create wealth for you through property investment. Just an intro, a little bit of what we do and why you should use a broker. So the role of a mortgage broker is basically to work for you, client, Mr. or Mrs. Client. We're not tied to any specific bank or building society. We specifically work for you to get you the best deal to meet your circumstances, your objectives and your needs. Now, there is tied mortgage advisors who are tied to one single lender, and there's also what they call whole of market independent mortgage brokerages, which we are, where we've got access to all your high street lenders, all your specialist lenders. So if anybody's got a quirky property, or they've got a little bit of blips on their credit history, or there's a niche building society, we can use all of them and basically help you get the best deal for your circumstances, tell you what you can and can't afford, and we'll guide you through the whole process of starting your journey as a buy-to-let landlord or an experienced property portfolio landlord, where they may need to rejig, refinance, or even they may be stuck on 8%, 9% variable rates and thinking, I can't do anything with this, I'm stuck. You're not, give us a call, send us an email, and we can just give you a chat, a friendly, confidential chat, to see if we can help you and potentially save you money as well. Now, again, this is just a quick guide into buy-to-let mortgages. I can talk all day, and Nigel will tell you about buy-to-lets and mortgages, but because time is of the essence, this is just a quick intro. So, who can get a buy-to-let mortgage? Now, the majority of lenders will ask that you're a homeowner, as more or less their sort of minimum criteria. However, we have got access to a few lenders who will allow you to be a first-time landlord, first-time buyer. Now, to qualify for a buy-to-let mortgage, there is certain criteria that you must meet, just the same as a residential mortgage. However, the rules and regulations are a little bit slacker, because it's not always down to income, it's down to the rental income, type of property, and if you've got buy-to-lets in the background, stress testing. Okay. How do buy-to-let mortgages work? So again, buy-to-let mortgages work in the same way as ordinary mortgages. However, the difference is on a residential mortgage, say your home, majority of lenders would expect you to do a repayment basis. That means your mortgage payments will be paying off interest only and the capital, whereas the majority of landlords who go into buy-to-let investments, they want the mortgage payments to be as cheap as possible, so then they're making some return on the rental income. So I would say the high percentage of landlords put their mortgages on what they call an interest-only mortgage. The minimum deposit is a general rule, is a minimum of 25%. However, some lenders will do 20% deposit, but again, I've got clients down London where the property prices are higher than in the northeast, and it's not just about 25% deposit, it is about what the rental income is, and the lenders will work out how much you can borrow off the rental income. So the days of 25% being a dead cert are gone. It's all about stress testing, the rental calculations, and the risk to the lender. If you put the mortgage on interest only, you will only pay interest. So if you borrow £100,000, for instance, and you only do the interest only method, after 20 years or 25 years, you will still owe £100,000, and the lender will expect you to have the funds available to repay that capital at the end of the term. Again, I've just touched on it, but how much can you borrow on a buy-to-let mortgage? It is all based on rental income as a general rule. Most lenders will want a minimum income of £25,000, and the rental income as a general rule has got to be 125% or 145%, depending on if you're a basic rate or a higher rate taxpayer, more than actually the monthly mortgage payments. So with interest rates being high as they are today, and the stress tests being calculated higher than they ever have been, then you need to have expert advice and somebody who actually specialises in buy-to-let to tell you what you can and can't borrow and how you can possibly refinance an existing portfolio to make it work better for you and to possibly extract any money out to increase your portfolio. So plan for when there is no rent coming in. So everybody loves it, thinking bought a property, going to get the rent, going to make some money. However, anything what is good, there's also a little bit of risk, and we've got to make you aware that there will be times possibly when you first purchase a property that you might have a void period, you might have some maintenance to do, a little bit of refurb to do, or there might be tenants moving out and new ones moving in, and there might be a small gap of a couple of weeks, could take a month, could have unexpected expenses, boiler breaking down, burst pipe. So it's always recommended that you've got a financial cushion in place just for any of these mishaps. And also we've got lenders now for portfolio landlords. So if you've got more than 4 properties, some lenders will ask to see that you've got sufficient funds of XYZ per property to make sure that you have got that financial cushion in place, so you're not a risk to yourself and you're not a risk to the lender. So when it comes to the end of the 20 years or 25 years, and for those who have just invested in it to make an income of capital growth and rental income, there will be a time when basically you have got to redeem that mortgage. Now, hopefully, historically, prices have gone up and down, but a lot of the landlords, as Nigel has showed you from the graphs, property prices have rose over a long term. When you purchase investment properties, it is not a short-term investment. You're looking ideally 10 years plus. The days of buying something in a quick turnaround and making the cash, it's harder and harder. You've got to see this as a long-term investment, plan for your retirement and have a good exit strategy. So you can either sell it at the end of the 20-30 year term. There's lenders taking mortgages up to 85, 90, just for indefinite nowadays, because they realise people are living longer and longer and they're needing this to top up pension income. But if you need to basically repay the mortgage, then you definitely have to have an exit strategy, and that has got to be either sell the property or you've got some savings. And fingers crossed that you're not in a place when the market might have dipped and you have to sell it at a loss or negative. Okay. So buy-to-let tax implications. I'm getting asked a lot about tax implications. As an advisor, we can't give you any tax advice. We just tell you to basically speak to a tax expert. But we do, when we have a chat with you, we'll have an hour-free consultation with you, and we'll go through the pros and cons, and it's all down to individual circumstances and basically what is right for you and what isn't. But you definitely need to see a tax expert. Now, a lot over the last couple of years is, should I put my properties in a limited company or should I keep them in personal names? As we've seen, for those who have got existing buy-to-lets, these last half a dozen years, we've been hammered if you've got properties in personal names through all the tax benefits that have been taken away from you. You cannot offset your mortgage interest payments anymore. You cannot offset this. You're losing your capital gains allowances. You're losing more or less everything, having a name, having your mortgage and having your properties in a personal name. Now, with a limited company, it is becoming more attractive for clients to put properties into a limited company from outset, because of the potentially tax efficiency, especially if you're a higher rate taxpayer, and also reinvesting the profit in succession planning. I've put a couple of bullet points up there and just will get a video of this so you can have a look through them. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but there is pros and cons for both limited company and personal. It is down to personal circumstances, individual circumstances, and that's when I need to talk to you, see what your current income is, see where you want to be. If you're just buying one property and you're basically a taxpayer, might be personal names. If you're a higher rate taxpayer and you want to build a portfolio and you're just going to be getting that tax, then it will be possibly more suitable to be limited company. I do both. We're finding more and more people are going into the limited company route. And realistically speaking, lenders, the government are wanting people to go down this route because they want property portfolios to be run correctly as a business and professional. So for specific advice on how to set up a limited company, how to transfer to and from a personal name into a limited company, or just want to chat, a free consultation about what's the best way to go forward for regards to limited companies, buy-to-let limited companies, personal name, how to build a portfolio, or if you're stuck on a high interest rate and it's costing you a lot of money and you're not benefiting from the lower interests of previous, get in touch with us and we can help you or give you some guidance on how you could possibly restructure your portfolio or how we could possibly help you save a little bit of money. And I'm just going to give you a sort of a case study, what we've just recently done, and I think landlords out there will be possibly seeing a similar situation. We had a client down London, he had about 32 properties, few £1 million, and he benefited from all the low interest rates that had been on a lender's variable rate. So the benefits of the very low interest rates, 1%, 1.5%, because of the increase in the speed of the increases, within 2 years, he had seen his mortgage payments at 8%. And he thought that he couldn't do anything about it because some of the property portfolio was very strong. Other parts of the portfolio might have been a little bit tight with regards to current valuations or refinance, etc. And we were able to basically have a look at the portfolio, go with the existing lender who he was with. You had to do it through an advisor. They basically rejigged everything on the basis that they had used RPI for their sort of portfolio and their valuations of the properties and didn't go off current. And we were able to refinance our portfolio and save the client £40,000 per annum on interest-only mortgage payments. That's just one case study. I could reel off a lot more, but today it's just a basic taster for buy-to-lets and what's out there at this moment in time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass over to 𝗪𝗓𝗓, who is obviously, Nigel's told you, the senior lettings manager. She's got 10 years experience. She knows the ins and outs of sales, lettings, the compliance, the do's, the don'ts, and how to run a compliant lettings property, making sure you've got all the tick boxes. So over to 𝗪𝗓𝗓. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully that will come up. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that now. So yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. A little bit about myself. I currently head up, as Gary said, the sales and lettings teams at NGU, as well as overseeing a lot of the compliance on our managed properties, the tenanted properties as well. I originally started within the property management teams. So I'm going to give a brief run through landlord compliance, as there are currently a lot of regulations, requirements for landlords now, more than ever before, and they are constantly evolving. It's a huge part of being a landlord now, as we're all aware. And also the worst part of it being there are actually more consequences to being non-compliant than there ever was before. So it's certainly not worth taking any risks around your compliance as it is at the moment. Luckily, compliance requirements are pretty black and white. It's just there's an abundance of them to remember. So I suppose that's why it's good to have an agent in place. We can take that headache away for you. So before a tenancy begins, what do you need? Starting at the very beginning, there's actually compliance requirements needed before a new tenant is even signed on the dotted line for a new tenancy, you know, during a vacant property period. So what do you need to have? One, your safety checks. We all know the gas check is due annually. The EICR check, you have to do it every 5 years. You must have a valid one in place. 2, your EPC. You've got to have a valid EPC, but actually you need that at the stage of marketing a property now. So the compliance starts actually at the beginning stage again, where it's to let or for sale. You've got to have a current EPC in place. Right to rent, this is specific to when you found a new tenant for your property. So does your new tenant have the right to rent in the UK? Again, it's a check that a landlord must do. You've got to check all your tenants now. So you'll do it during your referencing stage when you found a new tenant, but it's just making sure you know exactly what you check in, what documents you've checked, and do they definitely pass that check before you put them in the property on a tenancy agreement. 4, you've got your insurance. We all know it's really important to make sure you've got the correct policy in place, suitable to the situation with your property, whether it's vacant or tenanted, and obviously make sure that it's up to date at all times. Licensing as well. So has your property got the relevant license in place? So again, first thing to do, check, does your property fall within any requirements that needs a license? So you've got your HMOs, houses in multiple occupation, that has to have a HMO license through the council. Selective license as well. So there's designated areas within some councils around the northeast whereby you need to have a selective license in place. Current councils that do have selective licensing areas at the moment are Middlesbrough, Gateshead, Newcastle, and Durham have a lot of areas at the minute as well. So make sure you've checked from the very onset, do you fall within a licensed area? So what do you need to provide to your tenant, how and when? Compliance has to be provided to tenants at the very beginning stage, but also just throughout the tenancy. So it's just constant, it's all the time. You've always got to be on top of your compliance, no matter what stage you are through the life cycle of your property and of your tenancy. The beginning stage is really important as it can have a big impact for the landlord further down the line if you don't carry out correctly. So if your tenant has not been given the correct compliance at the very beginning, even before they've moved into your property, it can have quite a big effect on the landlord in the sense that your Section 21 notice rights would actually be void, which obviously is only going to lead to further issues, unfortunately, during the tenancy, if you have issues with that tenancy. For beginning of tenancy compliance, we've got a strict rule at NGU whereby all compliance must be sent to the tenant a minimum of 2 days before any tenant moves into a property. So that's also before signing the agreement as well. And the agreement has to actually be signed by the tenant to also say that they've seen the compliance before they've moved in. So send it 2 days before ensures that we obviously meet those requirements. So what do we need? What do we need to provide as well to the tenant as well? So your safety and energy certificates, so again, that's your CP12, your EICR, your EPC. They all have to be sent to the tenant prior to a move-in. Via email is absolutely fine. 2, you've got deposit prescribed information, which again is just a written document from your deposit protection service, whichever one you may use. You've got to provide that at the beginning before your tenant moves in. And you've got to show that you've provided it. Get your tenant to sign your tenancy agreement to say they've seen it, or get them to sign a different document. But as long as it shows there's a record your tenant received it. 3, how to rent guide. So again, this is just a written document, the government made it, but they've made it compliance, they've made it legislation. You must provide it to the tenant before they move in. Make sure you get the up-to-date one. The government's always updating them. Get it off the government website. Specific to the property, obviously you need to make sure that your safety alarms are in check now. A landlord's responsibility is obviously to ensure that they're fitted in the first place, but also in working order as well. Obviously, your smoke alarms, you need to have one on every story, every floor of your property. Your CO alarm needs to be fitted in every room used as living accommodation that has a fixed combustion appliance, which includes your combi boilers now, other than a gas cooker though. That's not within the requirements at the moment. Specifically, NGU checks all safety alarms are present and in working order. They're all tested, expiry dates are checked. It'll be checked at new move-in, be recorded on the inventory. Always record that you've checked it. Make sure you've got it on some sort of paperwork, some sort of document to look back and say, yes, I tested it on this date, it was working. Alarms are replaced by us if, you know, we get there and we find we've tested it and it's not working, it's replaced there and then, so we never leave the property uncompliant. They're also recorded at every periodic property inspection, so throughout the tenancy as well. And again, it's recorded on the inspection report. Make sure you document in your tests. Make sure you document and that they still work. Tenancies going periodic, it's a small compliance requirement, but it's still needed. Basically, once your tenant has finished their fixed term, so it may be 6 months, it may be 12 months, once they come to an end, you have to inform them in writing that their tenancy is now going periodic, i.e. it's going month by month after that fixed term. Again, an email is sufficient, but you've got to remember to do it. And going back to licenses again, so you've got license renewals, make sure you're always renewing by the expiry date. They've got a specific expiry date, make sure you put your application in before the expiry date, don't leave it too late. 1 day later, it could still cause you a bit of trouble. It's not worth the hassle. And licenses, if you are within a license area, you've got a license on your property, some councils, especially Gateshead, that we're well aware of at the moment, they'll ask you for an annual review whereby you have to actually supply all your safety certificates for the last 12 months, all your inspection reports from the property visits, and all your safety alarm checks as well. For the previous 12 months, they'll ask you to do that every year for the full 5 years of your license. So that's why it's so important to make sure you've got a record of every check that you do. What if your property is not compliant? So what can happen? Enforcements. The council could enforce works. They could enforce safety checks if you've not done them. Fines. Fines can be up to £30,000, and it does happen. We've seen it. It does happen. Unsuccessful evictions. Again, if you've not done things right at the beginning, you're going to avoid your chances of getting a successful Section 21 notice served. Worst case is actually imprisonment as well, which obviously we don't want to get to that point. It's easy to ensure you are compliant though. Just be fully aware of what is required for your particular property. They're all going to be very different, i.e. like some may have license, some may not. A lot of compliance is relevant to all, but just be fully aware of what your particular property needs. Instruct all your new safety checks and inspections in plenty of time before your expiries. Again, don't leave it too late. Don't leave it to last minute. They need to be renewed before that expiry date is up. And keep a record of everything. When you get your new certificates, you have to send them to a tenant during your tenancy. You've got to send them within 28 days. Again, you've got all these requirements that you have to follow, and keep a record to show that you've done it. And the easiest option, just bring your property NGU and we'll handle it for you. So I'm going to hand you back to Nigel. Nigel's got some exciting news to end the presentation on. So thank you very much for your time.
Brilliant. Hold on, I'm just going to share my screen again. Hold on a second. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that, Annalise. Just to go over that, buy-to-let used to be incredibly easy. 2007 when I started, all you needed was a gas check. Now you've got you didn't even have to register your deposit within a deposit registration scheme. These days, you've got to get an EICR, gas check, EPC, make sure you register your deposit within 30 days. The entire landscape of landlording has changed. You can do it yourself, but it's incredibly difficult, and it's quite a lot to remember. Again, when it comes to finance, that's changed quite a lot as well. The changes to Section 24 and interest rates is incredibly. When you start now, you've got to really think about where you're going at the end. So you've got to think where you want your structure at the end of your journey rather than at the beginning of your journey, whether you want it in a limited company or in personal names. So really, it's good to get some advice at the beginning just to make sure you structure correctly. And thanks, Gary. Thanks, 𝗪𝗲, for that. That's really interesting. So anyway, just before we go into the questions and answers session, which I'm hoping there's lots of questions, Molly, and I'm really keen to help people as well. We're here to give some value as well in terms of what we can offer to people on this webinar. So what we've got is free deals. You don't have to take them. It's up to you. Like I say, if you're happy to self-manage using another letting agent, that's totally fine. Totally happy with that. Happy for you to join our webinars. Happy to give you as much advice as possible. But what we've got is free deals. The first deal is, it relates to if you've got a brand new property to the lettings market. So a property where you've just bought it, you haven't got it all compliant yet. So you haven't got your EICR, EPC sorted, gas check sorted. It's empty as well, so you need to get a tenant in there. As well, your insurance, you need to get that sorted out. We've got a broker who actually matches or beats insurance. So again, you'd have to get that sorted. Again, we provide a tax guide, to help you save a bit on tax. That's incredibly important these days, saving money on tax. Mortgage advice, get yourself set up correctly with Gary. Refurb advice and quotation if you wanted to get that property refurbed. And also, this deal, which we're willing to offer to this brand new property, is we'll give you a 12-month refund guarantee. So if you take up management with ourselves and you weren't happy after 12 months, we'd refund all your management fees. Why would I do that? I don't lose landlords because of bad service. So I'm happy to refund management fees. If you're not happy, you can have your money back. Lost very few landlords over the last 15 years due to bad service. So the total value of this deal for a brand new property where you want to get fully compliant is 2,575. Because we like giving value and we like giving discounts, we are not going to charge 2,575 for that. What we're going to charge is 397. So all in, get all that stuff together, that's 397, which is a 85% discount. So we've got another deal actually, which is really if you've got a property but it's become empty, it's become empty, you've got all the compliance kind of sorted, but you're looking to try out a different agent. So we'd let the property for you again. We give 3 months free management, so give you a bit of a taster offer to get to know each other, sort out your insurance, get you a discount, save you a bit of cash. Tax guide again, save you some money. Gary would sort out your mortgage advice, refurb quote, give you that guarantee as well. So there's nothing for you to lose. If you came over to ourselves, you're not happy, we refund all your money. Again, because I'm confident in the service we deliver. That's 2,087. So you've got a property, bring it over to sales, and we let it for you. We give you that costs us 2,087. What we give you that for is 357. So again, a large discount because we're all about providing value, 83% discount. So the final type of deal is to do with like if you've got a tenanted property, so you've got a tenant in there, you may be self-managing and all these compliance stuff. You've had enough of dealing with tenants at middle of the night, or you're not totally happy with your letting agent and you want to try out a different letting agent. So for this deal, we'll give you 3 months free management again, just as a taster offer to get to know each other. Give you 3 months rent guarantee to secure your tenancy, to give you some security if you want to make sure, if you're worried about a tenant not paying the rent. Compliance check, and Elise will go through all the documents to do with the property, check your deposits registered in time, check your gas checks in date. Just make sure you're fully compliant when you come over to ourselves. Chuck in the insurance, tax guide, mortgage advice again, chuck all that in with a refurb advice, give you that guarantee, because again, I'm happy to refund if you don't like our services. So that's all worth 1,881. Give you that for nil. I don't know why I've agreed to that. 𝗪𝗲 said we'd do that for free, give you all that advice, but that's brilliant. So that is a 100% discount when it comes to me. So what we're willing to do is everybody's spent their Thursday night chatting to us, listening to us. We're happy to give that to the first 5 landlords tonight. Doesn't have to be tonight. Like I say, you can give Annalise a bell tomorrow or on Monday. We're happy to give that give that offer out to people who's on the webinar. So now I think what we're going to do is do questions. So I'm going to try and stop sharing I'm going to keep sharing the screen, everyone's going to mute themselves. Brilliant.
Hey, well done everyone, that was amazing. We have actually had a couple of questions. I think largely aimed at Gary, but I think Nigel will be able to chime in on a couple. So are you ready, Gary?
Let's do it.
Lovely. So we've had Mike Hitchin in the comments, and his first question is that he's currently in the process of moving to France. And he notices that some of the buy-to-lets that he has have mentioned that it may be an issue and that they may ask for funds to be repaid. Have you ever had any experience of this in the past?
So some lenders, because they're moving out of the UK, they'll ask to make sure that they've got their own sort of UK bank account. But a lot of lenders then, if they're going to be out of the UK for a specific period of time, or the majority of the time out of the UK, we can transfer them onto what they call an expat buy-to-let mortgage. A little bit stricter criteria, interest rates will be a little bit higher, but we do them. We're doing an expat for somebody in Thailand at the moment who's moved out living in Thailand. He's left 3 properties in the UK, so we've refinanced them, we've extended the term, and he's living in Thailand. He's got a UK bank account. Letting agent is managing the property for him down in London, and he's getting the rents put into the bank account. Then he's just basically doing as he wishes, and the lender is happy with that. So somebody like that, pick up the phone, we'll have a chat with them. But yes, they don't have to be paid. There is options available to them.
Amazing. All right. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that, Mike. And let us know if that helps. Obviously, if you've got any other questions, pop it in the chat, or we'll give Gary a call and he'll be able to help you. The next question is also from Mike, and it's whether there's a benefit to moving from being a private landlord to a company-based landlord.
So what is it? Again, it's down to individual circumstances, but what clients have got to be aware of is the price that they originally paid for the property and what it could be worth in value now. And by putting it from personal to limited company, the limited company will be purchasing the property. So there will be stamp duty to look at, there could be potentially capital gains, there'll be legal fees, they'll be possibly paying a slightly higher interest rate with a limited company than it is personal. So we've got to basically factor in what he's currently paying now, what tax status they are at this moment in time, and is it really the cost of potentially shifting it over to a limited company now worth it in the short term, and will they make the gains and recoup the money back longer term? If they've got a large portfolio, sometimes it's better just to keep it as it is. But if they're going to be purchasing new ones, then we can't put it in the limited company. But it depends on what their individual circumstances are now. But it can be quite costly initially to transfer it across.
Lovely. All right, Fab. Thank you for that. Again, Mike, just pop in any further questions if you've got, but if not, you can give Gary a call and get, we're going to put all the contact information up at the end as well. So obviously, if you need to give Gary a call, give him a call. Lovely. So we've got one other question. Again, it's for you, Gary. And it is, what challenges do you have with clients when placing cases with lenders? So I guess it's a bit more of a general question. So what kind of challenges do you come across?
Generally across the board, residential and buy-to-let, or is it specifically buy-to-let?
It's just saying when placing cases with lenders, but yes, I would assume so, seeing as that's what we've talked about.
Yeah,
You want to clarify?
So generally speaking, if your clients like a case packaged up, so they like to see proof of income. So if somebody's employed, they like to see your last 3 months pay slips, They like to see the last 4 months' bank statements to show that their income's going in. They like to see proof of deposit and where that, if they're purchasing, they like to see a track record, at least for the last 6 months, and bank statements, 12 months, where the deposits come from. If they're self-employed, again, lenders want to see proof of income from tax returns, accounts. They want to see bank statements to show the money's going in. They want to see if it's a purchase, they want to see a build-up of deposit again. They'll do the due diligence as they would normally, so they would ask for ID. Even though some lenders do not ask to see minimum income, you've still got to do your due diligence, and they could still do a spot check and say, we want to see this and we want to see that. So they're very more robust, I would say, is the word for lenders now. And realistically, you've just got to have an honest conversation with your broker. We'll ask for a lot of information up front before we actually place it with any lender, because we like to make sure that whatever lender we choose for that client goes through 100% and goes through very smooth with the least minimum problems or stress for the client. So we'll say we need such and such, all of them documents, what I said, sometimes a little bit more, because the vast majority of lenders will ask that. But for ourselves as a business, we ask that as a minimum requirement. So we'll ask for proof of income from pay slips, accounts, bank statements, proof of deposit, source of funds, and ID is just a general. So I think that's just standard across the board, realistically speaking.
All right, thank you. Sabrina, obviously let us know if that's answered your question. Mike said he's going to get in touch, so I think he's going to come and get some help. And we've also had just one question from Ahmed, which is, would Gary from the mortgage brokerage give a special discount to landlords affiliated with NGU who manage portfolios? Now, obviously, I know you're giving a big discount by giving you initial consultation for free.
Yeah.
You're getting a big discount by being with NGU anyway, but I'll let Gary just...
Yeah, so as a general rule, we're very transparent. So we're doing a free, no obligation consultation. It doesn't matter if it's 30 minutes, an hour, if it's 1, 2 or 3 phone calls. We like to work with our clients from today going on. I've got clients who I've worked with for 10 years. I've been in the industry longer, so I've got even longer. I've got parents who have passed us on to their children. Most 99% of my business, I would say, comes from referrals. So going back to discounts, if it's a large portfolio, with fees range from £499 to £1,000, yes, we will do some sort of discount, working in conjunction with you, depending on the size of the case as well. So yes, is the answer.
Wonderful. Lovely. All right, I think that's it for the questions then, everyone. Everyone seems happy with the answers that you've given, so no further questions have come up. Maybe give you another minute if there is any other questions, just quickly fire them in because we're coming up to the hour. And also, Nigel, if you want to just flick the screen, we'll pop on our contact details. So obviously, if you want to make the most of that incredible offer, especially the free offer, I mean, that's wild. And obviously getting in touch with Gary for all of your advice and things like that. You can come to us and we'll refer you to Gary as well, so we can go through that whole process. But take a screenshot. This is all of our contact information, all the places that you can find us. And yeah, we would love to hear some feedback as well. If you've got any feedback, drop it in the comments or give us a call or email us with feedback of how you found tonight as well.
Yeah, so I think we're going to try and do this webinar once a quarter. So what we'd be happy to discuss is if people give us some feedback on what they want to discuss as well, because, you know, we've got a breadth of knowledge within the company, from being a landlord, being an experienced mortgage broker, being an experienced professional within the lettings industry. So within that broad context of knowledge, we're happy to discuss any points people want to discuss as well. So definitely give us some, let us know what you want to talk about, and we'll come out and we'll present that information to you. And like I say, we're totally happy to give you our knowledge and as much information as we've got. So, Molly, do you think
I think that's it for the questions. Yeah, I think we're good to go. And like I say, just shy of the hour. So I think you've done amazing. And if any other questions come through, like I say, you've got our contact details. You can give a call. Open tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Brilliant. So yeah, so everyone enjoy your evening, enjoy your Thursday night, have a drink or a cup of tea, or just get yourself ready for bed, and we'll hopefully see you. We'll see you soon. Thank you.